Members, good morning. We've got a quorum already, so may I now call the meeting to order. Item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of November 2012. The minutes have been issued to members and no amendments have been received by the Secretariat. So can we confirm the minutes, please? Thank you, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Item 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. We haven't received any papers from the administration. Then date of next meeting and items for discussion. Our next meeting will be held on the 19th of February 2013, 2:30 p.m. and we'll be discussing the review of the R&D cash rebate scheme as well as the review of the patent system in Hong Kong. So do members wish to propose other more urgent items for discussion? No? Then so be it. Item 4 on the agenda, briefing on relevant policy initiatives featuring in the CE's 2013 policy address. So let's invite the administration in. Today we have a full team of officials attending our meeting.
寫咗你名啊？寫咗。馬逢國。盧偉國。首先好高興啊，兩位局長。
So we're happy to see the two directors of bureaus with us. Mr. Gregory So, Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, and also Mr. Raymond Tam, Secretary for Constitution and Mainland Affairs. Now, I will not be introducing all the officials present today. Now, I would like to invite Mr. So to highlight the salient points in the paper. As this is the CNI panel, will concentrate on commerce, industries, innovation and technology, intellectual property rights, and also promotion of inward investment. Thank you. Mr. So. Yes, Chairman. Now, in fact, the paper contains our new initiatives and our ongoing commitments, and I'll just highlight a few points. First of all, our industry policy. Now, the CE has said that we have to diversify our industries so as to satisfy Hong Kong people's demands with regard to starting their own business and investment. So we have to broaden and deepen our industries. And the Committee on Economic Development has been set up, so we're going to have studies at a high level on a cross-sectoral and cross-policy basis. We have to make use of the advantages that we have, and we need to promote Hong Kong's long-term development. We will need to see how we can further promote Hong Kong's economic development. Of course, we have our constraints, for example, limited land and manpower resources, and so we have to provide quality employment opportunities. We should focus our resources on high-value added industries or high-tech industries or industries where we have a competitive edge or where there is potential for growth. And so under the Committee on Economic or the Economic Development Commission, there will be 4 working groups: transportation, convention and exhibition industries, and tourism, manufacturing industries, innovative technology and cultural and creative industries, and finally professional services. So we hope that all stakeholders can join hands and pull together their wisdom so that we can formulate comprehensive economic development strategies to maintain Hong Kong's long-term competitiveness and to improve people's livelihood. Next, I would like to talk about CEPA. We have basically achieved the objective of liberalization of trade in services between the mainland and Hong Kong. CEPA Supplement 8 and Supplement 9 have already been signed, and the SAR government will continue to work very closely with relevant ministries and municipalities in the mainland. We will, in the coming years, through CEPA, try to broaden and deepen liberalization for the services industry in the mainland. We hope to have more market access for Hong Kong businesses, and also we will continue to extend the pilot trial and implementation measures to other provinces and municipalities, especially provinces and cities in the Pan Pearl River Delta region. And also, in order that we can implement CEPA smoothly, an additional joint working group will be set up. In the mainland, this joint working group will be led by the Ministry of Commerce, and relevant municipalities and the ministries will also take part in the work of this working group. And we will try to help the industries, especially SMEs, resolve their problems with regard to entry barriers. Now let me say something about intellectual property rights. We have to make sure that our IP protection regime and our patent system can progress with the times, so that we can develop into the new technology hub in the region. We are now reviewing our patent system, and I understand that the relevant review committee will come up with recommendations for the administration, and in fact we'll be giving a report to members on the progress in February. Now, we understand that intellectual property rights are increasingly commercialized because we have a knowledge-based economy, and we have the potential to become the IP hub in the region. We plan to set up a working group comprising representatives from the government, the industries, and also experts in order to map out the strategies for developing Hong Kong into an IP trade center. And then concerning developing new markets and external ties, we'll continue to try to work out free trade agreements with other countries. In fact, we have signed such free trade agreements with New Zealand, the European Free Trade Union, and Chile. And also in November 2011, we formally put a request to the ASEAN with a view to joining the China-ASEAN Free Trade Area. And we hope that a consensus can be reached so that we can join this free trade area as soon as possible. And concerning investment protection agreements, again, we will try to promote the signing of such agreements with other entities. In fact, in November 2012, we started negotiations with Russia, and we will start negotiations on investment agreements with Chile. And then promoting the Hong Kong brand. Now, I think you do remember that in June last year, the dedicated fund was set up, and the response was very encouraging. And then helping small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, because of uncertainties in the external environment, we'll continue to roll out support measures to help especially SMEs. We'll help industries and tap the domestic market in the mainland, transform and upgrade, and build up their brand names. And then concerning our ties with Taiwan, now we do have the existing platforms, and they are the ECC, PC, and THEC. And we'll continue to do investment promotion in the mainland Taiwan and also emerging markets including Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East, Russia, and we will also try to provide a quality platform for mainland businesses to go global. And then we are in fact the leading wine center in the world, and we will continue to carry out studies and also provide training for the relevant people. And then facilitating the movement of goods across the boundary. Members can refer to our paper for the details. And then innovation and technology will focus on industries where Hong Kong has an advantage. We'll provide both hardware and software, and we will also promote cooperation among the government, the academia, and the industries. And concerning software support, we will support R&D projects, and there will also be projects to support the 12 5-year plan, including the certified laboratories and also the participation in the 973 program. And we'll also build up the brand name of Hong Kong Testing and Certification. In January, we in Guangdong, Hong Kong, or the SIPA allowed Hong Kong testing organizations to test products processed in Hong Kong for the China compulsory certification system. So we can see that there is gradual acceptance of Hong Kong testing results by the mainland. And we understand that concerning testing and certification, there will be the 3-year market-driven industry development plan proposed by the Council for Testing and Certification. So I understand that members have already got copies of my speech, and I will be taking questions from members later. Thank you.
Constitutional Affairs Secretary. Morning, members. Well, this morning I hope to give you a brief update on our developments and our work regarding cooperation with Taiwan, and we can take questions later. Well, first of all, I'd like to highlight we now have more offices on the mainland. We have some 4 offices in the 4 cardinal points, and recently the hinterland has been developing very rapidly, and they have their strategic importance. So in order to take advantage of the hinterland development, we will have an office in Wuhan, and under the Chengdu and the Guangdong, we will have further offices set up in Chengdu and in Fuzhou. At the same time, we will also support Hong Kong residents and enterprises on the mainland. We will organize the relevant department and bureau work in our mainland offices. First of all, we will have dedicated staff on the mainland to work with Hong Kong residents and enterprises in the mainland. In our Chengdu office, we will also have an immigration group for our residents in distress. And third, we will conduct more research. We will try to understand Hong Kong residents' needs in the mainland. We'll also study opportunities and threats. We will strengthen communication with the different mainland units to promote Hong Kong. So besides having our mainland offices, we have statutory bodies such as the TDC, the Tourism Bureau. They also have different offices in the mainland. We will work with Commerce and Industry Bureau, and we'll work with the Hong Kong Trade Development Council and the Hong Kong Tourism Bureau to assist our Hong Kong residents and enterprises in the mainland. And also to enhance cooperation with the mainland and cooperation with the different provinces, we will reorganize the Greater Pearl River Delta Council. We will expand its reference. It will be upgraded to the Hong Kong and Mainland Economic Cooperation Advisory Committee. We will promote cooperation with our mainland counterparts. We'll also provide consultation services to the SAR government. We will also grasp opportunities brought about by the development of our country, and we'll also work to complement the drafting of the National 13th Five-Year Plan. Chairman, in our document, we also talk about cooperating with Beijing, Shanghai, and even Macau. We also talked about Nansha and Qianhai. We've also covered Sichuan and cross-straits cooperations. So I will not repeat the contents of my document. I'd just like to say that over the last year, through the ECC and the Taiwan-Hong Kong Economic Cooperation Platform, we have achieved some results. So first of all, in Taiwan, we have our offices where we work with different sectors in Taiwan. We also promote cultural exchanges. We also work on behalf of Hong Kong residents and enterprises in Taiwan. And last September, we also set up an internet service, internet immigration services, to make it convenient for Taiwan residents to visit and do business in Hong Kong. And last September, we also held our third meeting with our Taiwan counterparts, where we identified 4 areas: cultural exchange, consumer safety, certification and testing, tourism. We also dealt with investment topics. Between September and December last year, we promoted Hong Kong. We promoted Hong Kong. So in the coming years, we will work with the ECCPC and the THEC to deepen our work with our Taiwanese counterparts. Thank you. Okay, now it's question time. We have 8 members. Because of time constraints, how about 5 minutes each for question and answer? If they can't reply today, then perhaps the administration can provide a written response. Next, we have Xin Zhonggai, Wang Kok-heng, Ma Feng-kok, Lo Wai-kok, Mok Lai-kong, Leung Guan-yin, Wang Ding-kong, and Lam Kin-fong who wish to speak. Mr. Xin Zhonggai first. The policy address has not mentioned the 6 pillar industries. And a couple of days ago, in a radio program, the secretary said he didn't want to roll back the 6 pillar industries. So if you don't mention the 6 pillar industries, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But there are 2 industries, that is education and medical industry, seems to have been rolled back, scaled back. You talked about certification and testing. That seems to continue to exist. So my question is simple. So can you tell us, in the 6 pillar industries, what is the government's stance? Do you support it? Do you give it the cold shoulder? Or are you going to roll it back? Are you going to scale back? So could you elaborate on each industry? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Sin. Hong Kong has had 4 pillars, and the last government after deliberate consideration, they came up with identified 6 industries where Hong Kong had an advantage. In this term of government, we have an Economic Development Commission that will review our industries, and we think we can focus in certain industries where we have some advantages and strengths. So that's why we have the Economic Development Commission, and they have 4 working groups underneath. Now, a couple of days ago, in a radio interview, we focused on 2 out of 6 industries, that is the medical industry and education industry. Whether these were rolled back or scrapped, well, I had explained that in developing industries, we have to look at economic return. We also have to consider the public's needs. We also have to look at supply. In education industry, we do have some demand, and on the supply side, we have to consider the Hong Kong public's needs, and the same with medical industry. We don't have sufficient medical staff, so the supply is limited, and our priorities have to meet Hong Kong people's needs. So if there is insufficient supply, it doesn't mean that their standards are low. We have very high standards in education and medical services. So when conditions are met and there's sufficient supply for Hong Kong residents, when we can export these services, then we think it can be developed as an industry. So regarding the other industries, under the new Economic Development Commission, for example, in convention and tourism, these are part of the 4 major pillars. The working group and our commission will review these. Professional services, they already have a working group that looks into the development of this industry regarding logistics and transport. Besides ocean-going vessels, we also want to pursue a high-value service. So building on our past foundations, we, let's say, want to develop in ocean-going transport, in insurance, transaction management. So we do have a maritime working group that looks at maritime transport. In air cargo, we will look at how that can be developed. In land transport, we also have a working group that deals with this. And in financial services, we have the Financial Development Council that looks on Hong Kong's future. Trade, you mentioned cultural innovation. You haven't mentioned environmental services. You talked about certification and testing. Chairman, we cannot just talk about 6. We have 4 pillars and then 6 industries and so on. If Mr. Sin talks about certification and testing, under our innovation, technology and manufacturing working group, this will be handled. We'll also have different professional services that will be handled by the professional services working group. Of course, we have the Economic Development Commission that will look at these topics. I just want to say that we need to have a focused development. We have to look at economic efficiencies. So the preparatory committee will look at past development and will identify future growth potential. Thank you. Mr. Sin, if you need to follow up, you can do so later on. Next, we have Mr. Wong Kok Hing. I have 2 questions for 2 secretaries. The first for Mr. So. you have served in 2 terms of government. You are in charge of economic development. In the past year or 2, we see that in Hong Kong, tourism, retail, and so on, there have been multiple incidents, whether it's cultural clashes, mainland people interacting with Hong Kong residents. In their interaction, there have been some unhappy incidents. As a matter of fact, some might have been quite controversial. So I don't see the Economic Bureau. How would you resolve these conflicts? How would you smooth out these bumps? Therefore, I want to ask Mr. So, in this term of government, what measures do you have to tackle these? The second question is for Mr. Tam. The government encourages Hong Kong residents to start a business or work in the mainland. So, Mr. Tam, are you aware that a lot of Hong Kong residents, when they work in the mainland or start a business in the mainland, not everybody is that successful. Some people might lose their shirts. They end up bankrupt. Those who work on the mainland, they might be dismissed and they cannot receive their compensation. When they come back to Hong Kong, when they apply for comprehensive social security, they have to be resident for 7 years. If they receive other forms of assistance, they are not eligible, and they would have to queue again for public housing. So these difficulties, the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, have you dealt with that? This is not a new issue. So, Mr. Tam, 2 questions. Mr. So, you can go first. Mr. Wong mentioned there were incidences between the 2 groups, and regarding tourism, well, first of all, a few issues. The Tourism Bureau has been promoting hospitality. This goes both ways. Hong Kong has to have a hospitable culture, and mainland people come to Hong Kong in a new environment. They also need to understand Hong Kong's culture so that they can adapt to Hong Kong. Now, regarding unhappy incidents, for example, there have been forced shopping. Well, we have stepped up law enforcement, and through the Tourism Council, we try to target the zero-cost tour packages, and we target unscrupulous operators. We don't want to see forced shopping, and law enforcement has stepped up. Regarding tourism, we also need to consider Hong Kong's capacity. Do we have sufficient infrastructure? I can show you some figures. There were 48 million tourists coming to Hong Kong. So, aside from mainland tourists, we have some 14 million overseas tourists. We are number 2. Malaysia is number 1 in tourist figures. So compared to other Asian cities, we have more tourists.
As we have a large number of visitors every year, we need to provide sufficient facilities, high-quality facilities, and so we will need to work with the tourism ministry and with members of the public to provide the right environment to attract tourists. Mr. Tam, I think one or two questions raised by Mr. Wong have to do with my work concerning conflicts arising out of context between Hong Kong people and mainlanders. Now we will step up the work of our mainland officers. We will step up liaison with the various provinces and municipalities. We'll step up publicity, and we will try to promote communication with a view to eliminating misunderstanding and promoting mutual understanding and respect. Our bureau supports the work of the CS4A with regard to adaptations and adjustments to institutions and systems arising out of increased contacts, business ties between the two places, and also Hong Kong people working in the mainland and so on and so forth. And Mr. Matthew Zheng and his colleagues are rolling out schemes like the Guangdong scheme in order to meet the latest demands in society. I just hope that the administration will understand the difficulties faced by Hong Kong residents who used to work or do business in the mainland and who have subsequently come back to Hong Kong. Now, Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, I support the development of Hong Kong into an IP trading hub. Now, I think we need to identify what advantages and conditions we have, whether we have talents and so on and so forth. But the Secretary has just told us that he will get experts to study what support we need, what advantages we have. So you can't think that Hong Kong can be a trading hub as because you've seen IP rights trading elsewhere. Now, last year we saw the problems arising from the amendment to the copyright ordinance, and then it seems that there's the idea of an IP trading hub cannot be really seen in the policy address. So are we going to do it? And I'm in particular referring to the amendments to the copyright ordinance. So what is the progress? What is the way forward? And then I want to ask what Create Hong Kong has done, the effectiveness of its work, and also what about the work of the Film Development Office, and also other industries including media, broadcasting, music, design. I think apart from animation, we see a lot of creative industries declining rather rapidly. For example, movies, music, we can see that they are obviously on the decline. Previously, if 5,000 copies of a CD was sold, then that would be a crisis. But now, if 5,000 CDs can be, 5,000 copies of a CD can be sold, then there must be a celebration. In fact, the student population, especially the university student population, will drop in 5 years' time. That has to do with the drop in population. I want the administration to understand that, in fact, local demand is declining. So I think you should continue to develop creative industries instead of just allowing these industries to decline and perish. Mr. So. In fact, we possess the right conditions to develop into an IP trading hub. In fact, we have a very sound IPR protection regime. And we also have a lot of professional services. Now, because when we talk about IP rights trading, then other support services are required. For example, arbitration. And in Hong Kong, we have an adequate supply of quality talents. And if there are disputes involving Southeast Asian countries and the mainland, very often people would like to turn to arbiters in Hong Kong. And we have financing services, legal services, accounting services, and all these can support IP trading activities. And more job opportunities can also be created. We can also help mainland enterprises and industries go global. And we can also help promote inward investment for the mainland. For example, licensing is one very important aspect that we are involved in. So the working group will look at how we can have the strategies to promote our status as an IP trading hub. In fact, the TDC will also have a lot of work to do, and our suggestion has the support of the Chambers of Commerce. I understand that this issue will be discussed by the ITB panel, and we also plan to go to the ITB panel in the near future for discussion with members. Mr. Lowaiko, I need to declare that I am on the board of directors of the Science Park Corporation. Mr. C.Y. Leung, in his election manifesto, said that he would promote the development of industries and also innovation and technology. He proposed the splitting of the CDB into 2 bureaus, and then he said that there should be an IT communications bureau. At the time, members did express support for the setting up of the bureau, and so I want to know whether this bureau will be set up. And then it is said that R&D will be encouraged and promoted. For example, concerning this double tax reduction for R&D, there is some consensus in the industries. So I understand that we are looking forward to some such proposals in the budget. There is the R&D cash rebate scheme. The percentage has been increased to 20% and then 30%. So we can see that this pledge has been delivered. But what about the other pledges? And then some members have pointed out concerning the 6 industries where Hong Kong has a clear advantage. Although they haven't been formally withdrawn, they are not mentioned in the policy address. For example, what about environmental protection industries? I understand that in the 12 5-year plan, the recycling or recycled economy, this term has appeared many times. So we should continue to promote green industries, environmental protection industries. 4 working groups will be set up under the Economic Development Commission. but there is no working group on environmental protection. So is it that the administration has again changed its policy? Mr. So, now concerning the proposed Technology Bureau, my response is that we do need the blessing of LegCo. And of course, the government has to set its priorities, and but what I want to say that with LegCo support, then the idea can be taken forward. And then may I now invite Ms. Wong to say something about the cash rebate scheme. Chairman, as Mr. Low has rightly pointed out, the percentage is 30%. In fact, I've checked the figures. In fact, the situation has improved when compared with the situation last year. We'll give members a detailed paper later. We've approved a sum 3 times the amount in previous years. Now, but of course, we need to take into account the fact that the percentage has been increased from 10% to 30%. But even if we disregard this factor, still there has been an increase in the amount of funds approved. And also, for these projects, declarations have been made to us so that we can be aware of the financial implications. And starting from the 1st of February 2012, I want to say in that year the amount has doubled. So this is really very encouraging. And coming to environmental protection industries, I can't speak on behalf of the EPD, but we are in respect of innovation and technology. We have done a lot in phase 3 of Science Park. That we will be promoting green industries. We have the Green 18 building. And concerning our R&D centers, for example, solar energy and other things, we are doing a lot. So I want to say that environmental protection industries are something that we attach great importance to.
Well, the tax rebate is not our ambit. You have to talk with the Treasury. The Hong Kong tax regime is very attractive. It's not just because it's not high, it's also because it's very simple. In similar discussions, we are reluctant to change some fundamental tax regime because of technology. The tax, well, we have a cash rebate, and the figures over the last 2 years indicate that it is already doing its job. Okay, thank you. Because of time constraint, and we have more members wishing to speak, so I have to exercise strict control. Next, Mok Lai Gong. Just now, Lo Wai Kok mentioned I won't repeat those questions. So the government is saying the LegCo hasn't provided some parameters. No, we don't want you to respond because you might just repeat yourself. We see that in the policy initiatives, we have some initiatives on the industry. There is a cultural innovation group where we feel that it is given too wide a reference and it cannot focus. We also have to include manufacturing. It might be relevant, but we feel that it's not focused. And there isn't any information technology representative, where there's only a mainland participant. That's not sufficient, and they might not understand Hong Kong situation. So what I would like to, my question is about transparency. Will the minutes of meetings be disclosed? Because with the Poverty Commission, when you ask them for information, they can't even disclose the agenda. The second point is about IP protection. Just now, Mr. Mafongok mentioned that IP trade, I feel we should develop this area. And the Secretary mentioned that we have some advantages in legal services. Well, in innovation technology, what can we do or help this industry? So the administration needs to focus its efforts. Mr. Mafongok also mentioned the copyright amendment. I'm very concerned because last year there was urgency, but because of some small problems, it was postponed and it stalled. You see, in the UK, they want to legislate within the year, and they've also introduced a lot of exemptions, including the studios. So will you take reference from overseas development and legislate in Hong Kong as soon as possible? Because the copyright industry, they are very anxious. Internet users are complacent and they think that they are not breaking the law. And the last question is, Leung Zhenying in his manifesto mentioned that I would like to highlight in point 21, within 5 years, the government's investment will reach 0.8% of GDP, and point 22, he will support application, IT application and environmental technology, and this should be implemented through the procurement policies. But in the policy address, we don't see that implemented. How do you increase investment to 0.8% of GDP? And how much is the current investment? In 2011, the whole investment was 0.8%. Other countries are talking about 2%, 3% of GDP. It seems that the government has not used the GDP as a benchmark. So could you provide some benchmarks? Because the CE, in his campaign, he has some references, but these all disappear once elected. So could you give us a timetable on innovation center, science park, and so on? Will they be consulted? You only have 1 minute. Well, first of all, innovation technology, and the working group will meet with the industry and set a policy, this IP trading. Of course, it has an impact on innovation technology because we have to develop innovation technology. In the past, in application, commercialization of research met with difficulties. But this trading center, if it can conduct trading, then we will enhance commercialization of research. So this has a very important role. Third, our copyright amendment, you are aware, it had already went through the Bills Committee at the last stage. Because of time, we were aware there were other views, and we had to consult those views. I think members are aware it's very difficult to reach a consensus, but we will communicate with the stakeholders and resubmit this bill to LegCo. And of course, there's a lot of communication that needs to be done. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Leung Guanyin, I've been appointed to the Economic Development Commission, but of course, in the policy address on economic development, there's been a bit more effort, but then it's not substantial because the Economic Development Commission We don't know what they're going to deal with. I hope the Secretary knows what's on the agenda. But in the Secretary's response, I'm confused. They want to deal with long-term policy. Long-term. Comprehensive. So that means that we won't see any results in 5, 6, 7 years. Well, I would like something concrete. You talked about IP. There's also a comprehensive strategy. So if we have to wait for a comprehensive strategy, then everything will have to be shelved. We have to wait for the strategy. Well, we need something more concrete. Second, you have chosen Wuhan to set up another office. I support that. But how will you assist Hong Kong people develop their career, especially under CEPA? We have a lot of professional services. How are you going to assist them? And I see the Industry and Trade Director has not responded. What kind of complaints will you receive? There are a lot of complaints. How will you deal with them? How will you interact with your counterparty on the mainland? Will you be dealing with the Minister of Commerce? So I'd like you to respond to my 3 questions. Mr. So, the Economic Development Commission, as Mr. Leung said, we need to review long-term strategy, comprehensive long-term strategy. This commission will convene as soon as possible, and we will come up with a timetable, and we'll set up the 4 working groups. So we'll provide them with an agenda and timetable, and of course this development has to consolidate Hong Kong's strengths, and they are the elites in our industries, and they have a good grasp of the problems, and they can provide some valuable input. Of course, the CE has said we will implement policies one by one when they're mature. But sometimes for economic policy, we need a more macro and long-term approach. So I think Mr. Leung and other members can contribute. Mr. Tan? Mr. Leung said, our mainland offices, how can they assist Hong Kong residents and enterprises? Well, there are 3 areas. First of all, we can collect a lot of economic data, administrative data. We work with the central government, the provincial government. For Hong Kong people who set up businesses, if they need administrative cooperation, the mainland offices and Hong Kong bureau departments can communicate with their counterparts. Third, working, living in the mainland, if there are, we can provide assistance, and if it's possible, we will strengthen these areas. First of all, we need to understand the kind of obstacles, working problems that Hong Kong people encounter. So, and as our paper says, we will conduct research and study. Thank you, Sharon. Regarding CEPA liaison group, We will target industries that run into more problems. For example, in Guangdong, Shanghai, Beijing, different areas. If they encounter difficulties, we will reflect that to the central government, and through the Trade and Industry Bureau, we communicate with our counterparts. But for individual enterprises, they might not work through this mechanism. We have other mechanisms, and we will try to either liaise at the provincial or central government level. Now, the working group under CEPA, there is a high-level liaison group, a high-level committee. In Hong Kong, it's convened by the Financial Secretary, and Beijing, it's convened by the Vice Minister of Commerce. And we can enhance the levels of communication. Next, Mr. Wang Dinggong. Thank you, Chairman. It is a matter of fact that we need long-term development of our economic activities. It has to be feasible, not just a mirage. Convention, industry, and tourism is important to Hong Kong. The two convention venues, that is in the Convention Exhibition Center in Wan Chai and the Asia World Expo in Tseck Lap Kok. It seems to be there's a lot of difference of opinion regarding the expansion of Convention Exhibition Center. Could you tell us the Wan Chai CEC third phase expansion, will it be implemented? Has it been considered? If so, what are the details? Asia World Expo also has expansion considerations. Does the government have any arrangements on tourism? Mr. So had expressed he would consider attracting more big spending tourists. So I'd like to ask, that's a good idea, but do you have any specific measures to attract them? Thank you, Mr. So. I'm not sure if I should be responding to this, that is regarding tourism. Well, you're going to talk about the convention exhibition? Convention exhibition, I had responded to this before. The government will review the convention facilities, its usage, and the industry development. We are aware the utilization rate can be increased. Right now, we need to take the two exhibition centers, they need to coordinate their efforts. We need to use our resources efficiently, and if necessary, we'll have other considerations, but we have to look at exhibitors' interests, organizers' needs. We have to consider traffic, transport, and we are keeping a close eye on this development.
Chairman, I agree that we should discuss tourism-related issues in the Economic Development Panel. But as Mr. So is here today, I really hope that he can give a reply. In fact, I have said just now that we have a large number of visitors every year, and even if we disregard mainland visitors, we rank second in Asia concerning the number of visitors, and so we have to make sure that we have enough tourist attractions and that we have sound and speedy immigration and customs clearance. So we have to upgrade ourselves both in terms of quantity and quality. if we want to visit a certain place, and if we can't easily book a hotel room, that would be a deterrent effect. So we're trying to attract different categories of visitors. In fact, in September last year, the CE announced that there would be a mechanism to keep under review whether Hong Kong would be able to cope with the visitors from the mainland, and the CPG would, of course, give us the necessary support. Now, because of your remarks that Hong Kong should try to attract visitors from the high-end market, some criticized us for selecting the visitors that we preferred. I think what is important is that we should try to bake a bigger pie. We should increase the number of visitors in all categories. We should try to provide more business opportunities for the industry. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, I think it's important that we have an overall industrial policy, and that there should be balanced economic development. And the policy address contains a number of measures to promote economic development and to support the business sector. Now, in fact, our alliance has put a number of proposals to the administration, and many of them have been accepted by the administration. For example, the $100 billion loan guarantee scheme, and also expanding the functions of our mainland offices and increasing the number of mainland offices. And also the setting up of a committee to promote cooperation between Hong Kong and the mainland. A couple of days ago, I met the party secretary for Guangzhou and also the governor of Guangdong. They agreed with me that the main door had been opened, but then the small doors had not been fully opened. But then how are we going to open these small doors as well? It's easier said than done. So what will the mainland officers do to help open these small doors? No, as you know, many Hong Kong businessmen are investing in Guangdong province. So how can you make sure that the small doors in the province can be opened to Hong Kong businessmen? And I think promotion is very important. It's important, of course, to help Hong Kong people, to help Hong Kong businesses, but I think promotion is important. Promotion should be done at a high level, and there should be a more high-level promotion activities both in the mainland and in overseas countries. In fact, I had expected the CE to do more to promote Hong Kong, but I think he hasn't really done too much in this regard. And so will the CE lead promotion delegations to the mainland, to Asian countries, and to other parts of the world? But of course, so we understand that many mainland cities and the provinces are developing extremely rapidly, and so I think the CE should lead delegations to the mainland to try to tap business opportunities. Mr. Tam, yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your support with regard to the expansion of the functions of the mainland offices. And concerning promotion, the TID and the Ministry of Commerce will step up promotion. Now, when I was working in the CE's office, we went to Beijing and we had discussions between the CE and the Ministry of Commerce, and I knew at the time that they would they regarded that as a priority. And then promotion. We of course hope will continue to step up promotion. Our mainland officers as well as the TDC do have strategies to promote Hong Kong businesses. So concerning our mainland officers, ETOs, TDC officers, there will be better coordination and cooperation, and we plan to have a standing mechanism for such cooperation and coordination. In fact, since he assumed office, the CE has concentrated his efforts on people's livelihood, but of course he also attaches great importance to business promotion. In fact, he attended the Pan-Pearl River Delta region forum. He met the governor of Guangdong and other provincial leaders, and he made some suggestions which had the support of the mainland provinces and municipalities. So our bureau, the CDB, also will continue to support the CE's efforts in promoting Hong Kong. Mr. So, with regard to our promotion efforts in the mainland, the ETOs have been doing a lot of work. In this financial year, we had the Hong Kong Week in Chongqing as well as in Wuhan. We also tried to promote industries there, and we will have another Hong Kong Week activity in Xiamen in Fujian, and we'll also join hands with TDC in such promotion work. And I want to say that I have also been personally involved in such work. In fact, policy secretaries do promote Hong Kong when they are on overseas visits, or when chambers of commerce want to send delegations to the ASEAN, we will give them our support, and if possible, we'll also be accompanying such delegations. Chairman, just one more remark. I think you shouldn't just ask the business sectors to try to open up these new markets. I think it's important that there be high-level steering and support. Deputy Chairman, Ms. Ann Chiang, thank you. I'm not accompanying you on the stage today. I think it's good that I'm sitting here. And I want to ask Mr. So one question. Para 8 of the paper, or rather, something is mentioned about joining the ASEAN Free Trade area. Now, no, in Hong Kong, we practice free trade. We allow allow others good access. And so concerning ASEAN, I think we have to rely on the 10+1 initiative. I think Hong Kong enjoys a premier geographical location. We are right in the middle of the ASEAN region. We are the southern gateway to China, and in fact I once talked to people in the 10+1 Secretariat, and they said that they would also consider setting up an office in Hong Kong. So this is just for information. So I think it's good if they can have an office there, and we can lobby them every day. And then 13 or 14. Now last year, the Invest Hong Kong completed 316 overseas mainland and Taiwan investment projects. That's para 14 of the paper. And many people were attracted to Hong Kong to invest here. So when we invite people to come to invest, do we have some priority areas, or do we have certain products that we specifically want to sell to them? You know, my family operates factories, and I understand that usually when, say, in the 80s, for example, Taiwan came to Hong Kong to try to attract Hong Kong entrepreneurs to invest in electronics and mechanical engineering. And Taiwan was able to develop such industries very, very rapidly and very, very successfully during those years. So what are our attractions? And when we sell certain industries or sectors to them, will we have some idea as to what economic benefits there will be for Hong Kong, how many job opportunities there will be, which talents will benefit from such investments. So let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about the future. Will you be doing that? Now, Deputy Chairman, we will be discussing the promotion of inward investment in the following item. Now, the Permanent Secretary will stay for the discussion of the following item, so he can give more, or she can give more details later. Yes, 10+1. Yes, it's important that we have the support of the CPG in joining the ASEAN Free Trade Area. Hong Kong is a small place, but then we have a huge volume of re-exports every year. For exports from Southeast Asian countries via Hong Kong to other places, the volume is substantial. And also we are a services-oriented economy. And so if we can tap this very huge Asian market, that would mean that there will be a lot of potential and room for development for Hong Kong. So we'll continue to lobby the various economies for Hong Kong's joining this free trade area.
I represent the working class. We feel that a diverse economy can provide promotional aspects. That when there are more job opportunities, then they can improve their livelihood. So I feel in Mr. Leung Zhenying's campaign, he said that he understood the working class plight, and even the FTU talks about this point, that is creating job opportunities. But if you look at economic development, I'm very disappointed. You talk about communication, promotion, and so on. Now, even though in paragraph 23 of the policy address he says, under the Economic Development Commission, there are a few different parts. One part being developing innovation, technology, culture, and so on. We already have a cultural working groups in my old election district, whether it's Sun Po Gong. In the last government, Donald Tsang tried to invigorate the industrial buildings, and I applauded him. But what is the outcome? Well, Donald Tsang might have wanted to support the innovative industries, the industrial buildings, but the result was something else. It benefited real estate developers. So when the government blames the young people of taking to the streets, well, then I would like to ask, who pushed them onto that route? You need new ideas to help them, to communicate with the mainland, to communicate, to attract foreign investment. If you compare us to South Korea, they have vision. They are developing cultural industries. Dongdaemun being an example. You want a diverse economy, we want a job opportunity. That's just empty talk. You're telling me, what kind of policies do you have to help the struggling creative industries? I'm going to set up a new group, Under the Bridge Action Group. Even in the colonial government, they could see that the manufacturing sector needed assistance. So they allowed these cottage industries to move into industrial building. Chairman, you're a businessman, but I'm familiar with these through my union work. We need government assistance. But you have just driven the young people into the streets to object against the government. So, Secretary, I have identified two questions. When he encounters land problems, it's not his ambit. When he deals with land, it's not his ambit. So he doesn't have any idea how to progress. I need to contact Chan Maopo from Development, Mr. Zhang from Home Affairs. So could you give me a simple response? That's your opinion. It's hard to respond. I agree with what you say. The CE in the policy address had said to improve livelihood, it has to begin with the economy. So we have economic initiatives and policies to improve people's livelihoods. You talked about job opportunities in convention, exhibition, transport industry, and so on. We hope to help the workers, for example, in transport, marine transport, the sailors. We now want to develop insurance, transaction management in the marine transport industry. So we hope to help the next generation of workers. So for old industries, we want to help them upgrade. So this is exactly what we want to achieve. coming back to innovative industries, we are spending some 300 million. We want to promote Hong Kong as being an innovative industry hub. I also have an example. We have a movie scheme where student directors will be funded to direct their first commercial movie. So through competitions, we want to identify scripts. Chairman, I have raised an important issue. In the whole Sun Po Gong, Guntong, Fotan, there is an innovative industry that are being squeezed by the real estate developers. You had pledged building 1 or 2 buildings. I'm saying in South Korea, the government is assisting this group, this industry. So you cannot just give me one example you cannot use one example to encompass the whole range of problems. Next, economic development, who does it benefit? Do you have good GDP figures? We might have more foreign companies or more mainland companies coming to Hong Kong. These are some indicators, but for local talent, local workers, improvement, that's questionable. For example, in marine transport, they don't have union representation. Even the sailors union, there is training for sailors. They have big ambitions. They want to be captains. We had news recently about the first female captain. But we see that the industries do not recruit these captains. Why should they be promoted to captain? We have less than 100 of these students. Yet they are not able to find employment in the industry. It's because the employers don't want to provide this promotional prospects. So even people who want to join the industry, they can't get a relevant job. So they'll spend 10 years sailing. Even if you're not talented, but spending 10 years in the industry, they can eventually be promoted to a captain. But all the training doesn't guarantee you'll join the industry. So we have the Marine Department saying they have to recruit overseas applicants because there's insufficient local talent. So we don't have sufficient local talent. Do you have to import overseas talent? I want to know, how will you ensure that people who want to join this industry, how can they join the industry? That's my first question. Second, convention and tourism. We see a lot of tour guides. We have a lot of tour guides saying if there are tour groups to the mainland, a tour guide will take over the work, so it doesn't create any job opportunities. So in the 4 working group under the Economic Development Commission, you don't have union representation, and we're very disappointed. Mr. So? Let me try to understand the question. On foreign investment coming to Hong Kong, it creates a lot of job opportunities. I mentioned the marine transport as an example. So we need to train people to meet the industry's needs. How do we train people? How? But we're now looking at a macro, long-term issue on convention and tourism. I think under the Economic Services Panel, we can have a more focused discussion. Yes, we can't have a detailed discussion, but if there's no training, then it becomes empty talk. The Hong Kong public will also not thank you because it's not relevant. I think you understand, even though you come from a political party. Okay, thank you. I have some questions, but I think because of time constraints, I will withhold my questions. Can we extend the meeting another 15 minutes? Our members and secretary, you have to stay behind. Next, agenda item number 5, in inviting foreign investment. Every year we report back to this panel, so I'll have the director on investment talk about his accomplishments. Okay. So, Director General.
Well, 2012 was quite a challenging year as the prolonged debt crisis in Europe remained a threat to the world economy. However, we're delighted to have achieved another record year in terms of the number of companies that we have helped. Last year we helped 316 companies, overseas companies, mainland and Taiwanese companies, to either set up or to expand their business in Hong Kong. These companies have created more than 2,900 direct jobs during their first year of operation. And they brought in a total of 7.7 billion in the form of direct investment. Of the main source economies for these projects, mainland China remained the largest source market. We had a total of 62 projects from mainland China, and this was followed by the US with 54 projects, the UK with 29, and Japan with 27. In terms of the priority sectors that we've been concentrating on, the transport and industrial team had the largest number of projects with 48, and our tourism and hospitality team came second with 46. I should point out that the transport and industrial team works specifically with a large number of mainland companies, so a lot of the mainland industrial firms are contained within their caseload. Tourism and hospitality could possibly be renamed the wine projects. They have a large number of wine-related projects in their portfolio. This is the 13th year of Invest Hong Kong's operation. Cumulatively over this period, we've helped now over 2,700 investment projects, and those companies have created 32,000 new jobs since our establishments. Major achievements, well, we've been continuing to work through our network of overseas representatives in virtually every one of the economic and trade offices, save for Washington and Geneva. Within those offices, we have an investment promotion unit doing IP work. And in those economies where we don't have ETOs, we engage part-time consultants to represent us and to act as our eyes and ears, searching out for companies that we feel could and should be in Hong Kong. Much of our focus is in alignment with the government's priorities, so we've been trying to target companies in financial services, innovation and technology, and also in creative industries over the past year. And we work in very close partnership with partners such as the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, FSTB, and the SFC in the financial services promotion. And of course we work very closely with the TDC in the generic promotion and with Create Hong Kong when it comes to creative industries. Last year we held a number of seminars, particularly on the mainland. We held 24 seminars on the mainland in 20 mainland cities. And over the course of the year, our overseas colleagues conducted over 5,500 one-on-one meetings with potential partners and investors. Looking ahead to 2013, we want to continue to promote the priority sectors, the priority industries that the government has specified. We'll continue to work in innovation and technology and creative industries. We'll put a little more emphasis on the marine sector this year. And in terms of our priority markets, whilst we will continue to reinforce our presence in our traditional markets, such as the mainland, the UK and US, we will put particular emphasis on expanding our activities in the ASEAN region. And we'll conduct more duty visits and look to enhance our presence across ASEAN, not just in Singapore. Aftercare is also an important part of our work, reaching out to the large companies that are already in Hong Kong to encourage them to put new business activities, new functions here. And we tend to target the largest companies from particular markets, particular countries, and to work down those lists to ensure that they have a presence in Hong Kong. With that, I'll finish.
好，唔該晒處長。跟住落嚟。
Thank you. Permanent Secretary, do you have anything to add? Just now, the member asked a question. Now in attracting inward investment, we do have certain priority sectors: financial services, innovation and technology, creative industries, as mentioned by the Director General of Investment Promotion. So these are the sectors that we are emphasizing. We hope to attract investments in these sectors, and in the coming year we will try to attract companies to invest in industries where Hong Kong wants to develop. Now concerning ASEAN. Now many people say that we should go to Myanmar or Cambodia. So should we do more in this country? ASEAN, there are really contacts and promotion on several fronts. Now we want to join the China-ASEAN free trade area, and that will help trade. If we can join the FTA, then that will help Hong Kong's products being exported to ASEAN. And then concerning exports from the ASEAN to the mainland, more of these will go through Hong Kong. And also, we of course would want to help manufacturers and entrepreneurs in Hong Kong interested in investing in the ASEAN region. And as our secretary has pointed out, if chambers of commerce want to carry out visits, we will also give them our assistance. For example, Myanmar, Cambodia as an emerging market. So we're willing to assist. And then the Director General and his team will try to attract the more well-established countries in the Asian region, their enterprises, will try to attract them to come to Hong Kong to invest, or will try to attract them to use Hong Kong as a platform to invest, say, in the mainland. Concerning the Asian free trade area. Now, Hong Kong is a free trade port. But then when we sign free trade agreements with others, there will have to be gives and takes, right? But we are already a free trade port. So what can we offer? What can we give to them? If we have nothing to offer, if we have nothing to give, then the chance of success will be rather slim. Yes, you're right, Chairman. Hong Kong is an extremely open market. When we negotiate free trade agreements with our trade partners, there are difficulties, but then we have had examples of success. New Zealand, Chile, and also the European Free Trade Union. Now, a free trade agreement is not merely about trade in goods. It also includes or covers trade in services. And also, under an FTA, there is also the element of mutual investment promotion. And I think here Hong Kong does have an advantage. Now we signed an FTA with New Zealand. At the moment, we are discussing with them investment protection agreements, and we've concluded the FTA with Chile, and this year we will be having negotiations of Chile on an investment protection agreement. An investment protection agreement can boost investors' confidence and boost bilateral investment. So of course we understand that we don't have tariffs, we don't have market entry barriers, but then in other areas I think we do have an advantage. Mr. Low Wai Kwok. Chairman, in fact we've got some figures in the paper concerning the work of the work of Invest Hong Kong, number of projects completed, number of jobs created, amount of investment, and so on and so forth. Here we have figures about jobs created within the first year. And we're talking about only 10 persons per company. And yet you've done so much to attract these companies to come to invest. And yet the number of jobs created within the first year is really not very impressive. But of course, I can understand. You're talking about jobs created within the first year only. And that's when the companies are beginning to establish themselves in Hong Kong. So do you keep on tracking the jobs created in subsequent years after the first year? Are they employing more people year after year? Are they increasing their presence and their investment amongst in Hong Kong? I think we also want these figures. These figures are meaningful. So I think we need figures about jobs created after the first year, because we want to know whether investors are really investing more. So can we be given such figures in the future, if not today? Yes, Director General.
You also track the number of jobs created after the next 2 or 3 years. However, sometimes it's difficult to maintain contact with a large number of companies, as companies move very frequently in Hong Kong, particularly as they're expanding. But we do collect figures on the number of jobs to be created within the first 2 and 3 years. I should also point out that whilst a company may start with only a small number of employees at the outset, particularly companies in creative industries, those companies can also create considerable indirect job opportunities, because small and medium-sized companies are not in a position to do everything in-house. They need to outsource many different activities to local Hong Kong service providers. So whilst a company may only employ 10 people at the outset, indirectly, through our service provider network, may be creating considerable job opportunities.
Yes. Now I can understand this situation. But then I want to talk about my experience. Now I invest in the mainland, and I understand that their external trade office tracks our development very, very closely, and we are required to provide them with a lot of figures. But of course, I understand that the system in Hong Kong and the system in the mainland are different, but I think we really need to have such tracking information so that we know whether our promotional efforts are really fruitful and effective. Now, yes, I agree with the member concerning aftercare service and support. This is an area where the Invest Hong Kong is developing, and we will of course step up aftercare and support. If members have no further questions, then let me say something. I want to say that I support the work of the Invest Hong Kong. I think you did a good job. You and your team did a good job last year, but then there will be difficulties in the year ahead because of the relatively poor economic situation in the US and in Europe. So, but do not lose heart. Please keep up with your efforts. And so I hope that next year when you come to report to us, you can bring us some good news again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary. Right. Item 6 on the agenda, AOB. In fact, all the members have left. Next Monday at 4:30 p.m., the HS panel will have a discussion on the development of Chinese medicine, and members of this panel who are interested can also join